I think in the mildly optimistic point is that it actually turns out that, this might be an issue where, in fact, the sort of dreaded partisanship of Washington does not actually prevent a treaty, which is, to be blunt, modest in terms of its effects.
Right.
But that said, modest and probably unambiguously good as far as most people are most foreign policy analysts would acknowledge.
Yeah. Well, to be pessimistic about it, though.
Okay.
The thing is that if you're doing an after-action report on this, right? You're Barack Obama, you're anyone, you're some future presidential candidate. You're looking at a really overwhelming quantity of support outside the Congress. Initially, in terms of former Republican secretaries of state, former Republican presidents, the military. When I was in Germany last week, and, their people were, freaking out about the idea that this would die and kind of leave Europe, oddly stranded. And it's for a treaty that's, not that big a deal in substantive terms, but that to not be able to get it ratified would have had, a sort of a meaningful impact on the psychology of the whole situation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Precisely because the treaty is so modest.
Yes.
People don't expect you to be able to, create world-changing disarmament agreements, but they expect, I think, routine updating of existing treaties to go through.
Right.
And it turned into a huge political headache for, say, because it hands off at some point, right? You have the State Department and you have the, Undersecretary for Arms Control, and you're discussing the treaty. And then at some level it kind of gets handed off to the, the legislative affairs people, the political people in the White House. And the price that, was extracted for getting it done in terms of delay, in terms of hard work, it was really high. And I think it sends a message to senators who are not that interested in foreign policy, to legislative affairs people at the White House, God forbid the Secretary of State comes to me and wants to talk about some more treaties.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, all right, I'll push back a little bit on this. I take your point, which is that in some way, the mildly optimistic thing is that it looks like it's going to pass. The mildly depressing thing is that this was such an anodyne treaty that it should have passed. This was one of those treaties that 30 years ago would have passed 98-0 and wouldn't have been that much of a pain. I think in some ways, what John Kyle wanted was not entirely unreasonable, which is he wanted greater money for nuclear modernization. This was not an as I said, I don't think this was an unrealistic. I thought that was actually a justifiable thing. Bob Gates had endorsed.
But he got it quite quickly.
Right, and so.
They just. If that had been if we had all this delay and all this difficulty because of a standoff over John Kyle's request for nuclear modernization money, I would understand that, and it would be, I think. But the Obama administration was always willing to make that concession.
I agree. No. So you missed it. I was about to agree with you, which is to say, once Kyle then got what he wanted, and then he still said, "I don't think that the treaty should be up." I actually think, I agree with you. Kyle had, as near as I can figure out, no genuine reason, no valid reason to oppose the treaty, and he even admitted that, I think, in his justification. He said the treaty is fine. And he actually said, and this was, I think, the most disturbing part of this whole thing, was that he didn't trust the president, even after the money was agreed to actually spend it on what it was suggested. And that does suggest a sort of poisoning of the well on foreign policy matters that I do find profoundly disturbing. That, we've had periods of fierce partisanship before. This isn't terribly surprising. But the notion that this was somehow, that you didn't want to, you wanted to deny Obama a victory on foreign policy for political reasons rather than realizing, hey, this could actually really fuck up U.S. relations with Russia, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, NATO, and, oh, by the way, Afghanistan and Iran. Right. Just minor lists of things that would potentially, impact U.S. national interests. That was disturbing.